My girlfriend leaned in with a conspiratorial smile and whispered, "You need to impress my friends." Then she slid a $2,000 dinner bill across the table. I smiled back and said, "No problem." Her face turned ashen when the waiter returned moments later and announced, "Sir, I'm terribly sorry, but your card has been declined." This is my story. A story that began 8 months ago when I met Chloe, a vibrant 27-year-old marketing specialist with striking green eyes and a laugh that could light up any room. We met at a friend's birthday party where she stood out not just for her beauty, but for her apparent intelligence and wit. I was immediately drawn to her confidence and the way she carried herself with such effortless grace. Our connection was instant, and before I knew it, we were spending every available moment together. I was 29, working as a cybersecurity consultant, living a comfortable but modest life in downtown Chicago. I thought I had found someone special, someone who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could provide. For weeks, Chloe had been dropping hints about meeting her inner circle, making it sound like some exclusive relationship milestone, like I was leveling up in the dating world. She spoke of these women as if they were gatekeepers to a higher plane of social acceptance, the kind of friends who could make or break a relationship. "Babe, my girls are dying to meet you properly," she'd say during our evening walks along the Riverwalk. "We're doing dinner at the Gilded Lily on Saturday. It's a fancy place. Don't worry about it. Just dress nice. You need to make a good impression. These are my closest friends." I should have caught the emphasis on "you need to," but at the time, I dismissed it as normal pre-meeting nerves. I was excited to meet the women who meant so much to her, to be welcomed into her inner sanctum. What I didn't realize was that I was being groomed for a performance I never auditioned for. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm weather for early spring. I spent extra time selecting my outfit: navy suit, crisp white shirt, polished Oxfords, the kind of ensemble that said, "I take this seriously," without screaming, "I'm trying too hard." The Gilded Lily was one of those establishments that cost more to enter than some restaurants charged for an entire meal, with velvet ropes and a doorman who looked like he'd stepped out of a 1940s gangster film. As I approached the hostess stand, my heart was pounding with anticipation. I'd met partners' parents before, but this felt different, more like an initiation than a casual dinner. Inside, Chloe was already seated at a corner table with 5 other impeccably dressed women. The energy was immediately off, like they were sizing me up for an audition rather than welcoming me as Chloe's boyfriend. The table was already adorned with half-empty bottles of expensive wine and partially consumed appetizers. The air smelled of truffle oil and expensive perfume, but beneath the surface there was tension, a palpable sense that I was being evaluated. "Ladies, this is Alex," Chloe announced with a flourish. "Alex, meet the squad." Introductions were made all around. I met Sienna, Tasha, Shonda, Maya, and Vera, but the atmosphere remained tense, almost clinical. Sienna, with her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and designer handbag, gave me a once-over that felt more like an inspection than a greeting. Tasha, the most overtly glamorous of the group, with her plunging neckline and heavy jewelry, barely looked up from her phone. Shonda, the self-proclaimed mom friend of the group, offered a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maya seemed the most neutral, while Vera, sitting next to Chloe, radiated an almost predatory energy. "We started a little early," Sienna said with a wink that didn't reach her eyes. "Hope you don't mind." I forced a smile and took my seat next to Chloe, who gave my hand a reassuring squeeze that felt more like a warning than comfort. The menu arrived, and I immediately noticed the prices were astronomical. $65 for a side of asparagus, $120 for a filet mignon. I tried to remain calm, reminding myself that this was a special occasion. Throughout dinner, it felt less like a social gathering and more like an interrogation. Questions about my career, living situation, and vehicle came rapid fire, each answer met with subtle glances between them. Tasha seemed particularly interested in my financial situation, while Shonda kept pressing me about my future plans. Chloe sat back, observing with a satisfied smile, occasionally interjecting with comments like, "Alex is quite generous," the word hanging there with heavy implication. They ordered like they were celebrating a windfall. Lobster thermidor, filet mignon with truffle butter, more bottles of wine. Tasha literally ordered 2 entrees because she couldn't decide. Nobody blinked an eye. I did the mental math. This was getting expensive, but I told myself it was fine. Special occasion, right? Meeting the friends is important. As the evening progressed, I noticed how they interacted with each other. There was a strange synchronicity to their movements, almost as if they were following a script. When one would ask a particularly pointed question, the others would lean in with matching expressions of interest. Chloe would subtly nod when I gave an answer she deemed acceptable, and I began to feel like I was being graded on some invisible scale. When the waiter placed the check in the middle of the table, a strange silence fell over the group. All eyes turned to me. Chloe slid it over with a smile that now seemed predatory. 1,285 or 72. This is everyone's meal? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Don't be silly, Chloe laughed. Of course it is. You wouldn't expect ladies to pay, would you? It was a test. I saw it now, a test I apparently needed to pass to prove my worth. I pulled out my wallet, and they visibly relaxed. Chloe squeezed my hand, proud. I knew you were one of the good ones, she whispered, as I handed the waiter my credit card. 2 minutes later, the waiter returned with troubling news. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Alex, but your card has been declined. The table froze. Chloe's face went white. $80? What? She hissed when I checked my banking app and saw only 87.50 available. I moved most of my money to savings yesterday, I explained, suddenly realizing how this must look. Higher interest rates, you know. Guess I forgot to transfer it back. The explosion was instant. Excuses flew about forgotten wallets and IDs. The waiter suggested splitting the bill, but Chloe stared at me with pure rage. Chloe, you did this on purpose, Sienna whispered. Chloe dragged me outside where she went full mask off. What kind of man are you? Do you know how embarrassing that was? She demanded. I told them you were a provider. I said you were different, and you humiliate me with this poverty act. Poverty? I countered. I have the money, just not in checking. Bullshit. You knew what tonight was. You knew you were supposed to impress them by paying $2,000 for strangers' dinners. They're not strangers. They're your friends. And yes, a real man handles the bill without whining. I watched through the restaurant window as chaos unfolded inside. The waiter talked to a manager while Chloe's friends frantically pulled cash and cards from hidden compartments in their designer purses. It took them 30 minutes to sort it out. At home, my phone erupted with messages. Not from Chloe, but from her friends. You're actually pathetic. Chloe deserves so much better. Small dick energy. No wonder you drive a Toyota. I blocked them all, but curiosity got the better of me. I checked Chloe's Instagram and found her story from earlier that day. Tonight's the night. Let's see if he passes the test. Heck, know your worth. The test. It was planned. Digging deeper, I found more posts about high-value women and dating with standards. Her TikTok account revealed an entire world of videos about how to test if he's a provider, red flags he asked to split the bill, and my girls and I only date men who pay. The dinner wasn't a meeting, it was a shakedown. I commented on her story. Failed your test but passed my own. Within an hour, she blocked me everywhere, but the entitlement was just beginning. 3 days later, I received a Venmo request for $378.62 from Chloe with the message, my portion from Saturday since you couldn't be a man about it. When I declined it, another request followed. You owe me this. Then came text from an unknown number. This is Chloe. Pay me back now. You deliberately humiliated me. The least you can do is cover what I had to pay. My friends think I'm dating a broke loser because of you. I refused and she escalated. She started calling 20 times in an hour, leaving increasingly angry voicemails. You're literally stealing from me. I'm going to tell everyone what kind of person you are. You'll never find another woman like me. Then things took an interesting turn. I started getting DMs on Instagram from women I'd never met, ex-girlfriends of other victims. One named Maya met with me and shared her story. Her ex had paid $1,800 for a similar dinner test, only to be dumped a week later for not being ambitious enough. This is her thing, Maya explained. She and her crew run this game every few months. Find a guy, milk him for dinners and gifts, test him with the big group dinner. If he pays without blinking, they keep him around for more. If he hesitates or can't, they shame him and move on. She showed me screenshots from a WhatsApp group called Elite Catch, with messages like, bound a new one. Finance guy should be good for at least 5K before he catches on. There was my name, photo, job, and car, all shared before I'd even met the friends. Chloe. This one seems promising. Makes money but drives a Toyota. Might be cheap or might be smart. Testing Saturday. After the dinner, failed. Had to pay my own way. Disgusting. I was stunned to learn there was an underground network of women warning each other about Chloe's crew. They had a spreadsheet documenting 27 victims in the past 2 years, with an estimated take of over $58,000 in dinners, gifts, and loans. Chloe wasn't done with me. When I refused to pay, she escalated further. I started getting calls from her brother, Marcus, a deep-voiced man threatening me. You got my sister out here struggling because you wanted to play games. I discovered Marcus wasn't her brother at all, but her ex, Derek, still hung up on her and doing her dirty work. The threats became more explicit. Would be a shame if something happened to that Toyota. Your job know you're out here disrespecting women. That's when I decided to end this properly. Chloe had made 2 critical mistakes. First, she put everything in writing. Second, she forgot I worked in cybersecurity. I began gathering evidence, screenshots of Instagram posts, TikTok videos explaining the scheme, WhatsApp messages planning the setup, Venmo requests and threats from Marcus. I dug deeper, tracing Derek's real identity and discovering Chloe was actively job hunting in sales and marketing, portraying herself as a relationship builder and strategic communicator. I created a simple website, dinnerscamwatch.com. Chloe may have thought she was teaching me a lesson about being a real man, but the truth is, she taught me what a real relationship shouldn't be. And for that, I suppose I should thank her. After all, it's often through our most painful experiences that we learn our most valuable lessons. Today, I approach dating with a healthier perspective. I still enjoy treating my partner to nice experiences, but I do so because I want to, not because I feel obligated. And when my current partner insists on splitting the check, it's not a rejection of my generosity. It's a sign of her respect for me as an equal partner. In the end, the real test wasn't about who could pay the bill. It was about who could recognize genuine connection when they saw it. And that's a test I'm finally passing with flying colors. She made it to final rounds at 2 companies before they decided to go in another direction. Coincidence? Not when Dinner Scam Watch was the 3rd Google result for her name. Then the IRS came knocking. She owed about $3,200 in back taxes from her business meals, plus penalties and interest. But the most satisfying collapse was watching her crew turn on each other. When the restaurant ban hit and tax issues arose, paranoia set in. Accusations flew in their group chat. Who snitched? Someone gave them our messages. They started kicking members out, suspecting everyone. Chloe blamed Tasha for being too obvious. Tasha blamed Chloe for keeping records. The group imploded. Derek stopped calling when I mentioned I'd traced his real identity. 3 months later, the aftermath was deeply satisfying. Chloe remained unemployed, hard to hire when you're internet famous for running dinner scams. Last I heard, she'd moved back with her parents and was working at a mall kiosk selling phone cases. She tried rebranding online as a financial abuse survivor, posting about how men weaponize poverty and manipulate with money. The comments were merciless. Girl, you literally ran a dinner scam ring weaponizing poverty. You mean having a savings account? This you? With screenshots of her TikTok tutorials. The IRS hit her with a $4,500 bill after penalties. She had to sell her designer bags to pay it. Her crying video about persecution became a meme in local Facebook groups. Her crew scattered. Sienna tried to start her own version but got exposed immediately. A local date scammer warning Facebook group now had 450 members, sharing photos of would-be scammers. Tasha reached out to apologize, saying she'd gotten caught up in the lifestyle and realized how messed up it was. She was in therapy now. The restaurant industry started sharing notes too. Turns out there were similar groups running the same scam. Now there's an informal blacklist among high-end places called the Test Table List. As for me, I'm dating someone new. On our first date, she insisted on splitting the check. When I offered to pay, she said, "I've got my own money. I'm dating you, not your wallet." It was the most refreshing thing I'd heard in years. Chloe sent one last message last month. A bill for emotional damages from the website. $10,000. I replied with a screenshot of her old TikTok. How to know your worth. Never accept less than you deserve. She blocked me finally. The website's still up, getting about 120 visits a month. Occasionally I get thank you messages from guys who Googled their date and found it. Looking back, the funniest part was how offended they were that I only had $80-some-50 in checking. Like having a savings account was somehow poverty. These women were living paycheck to scam check, borrowing rent money to keep up appearances, but I was the broke one. The entitlement was unreal. They genuinely believed they deserved free meals just for existing, that men owed them luxury for the privilege of their company. And when reality hit, when they had to actually pay their own way, they called it abuse. But hey, at least Chloe learned something. Last week, someone spotted her at a local diner splitting the check. Growth. The entire experience taught me more about human nature than I'd learned in all my previous relationships combined. It revealed a disturbing trend in modern dating, a culture where some women have weaponized social expectations to extract money from men under the guise of testing their worthiness. It's a predatory system disguised as empowerment, where vulnerability is exploited and generosity is seen as an obligation rather than a choice. What struck me most was the sophistication of their operation. This wasn't just a few gold diggers having fun. It was a well-organized network with documented strategies, shared targets, and clear metrics for success. They had turned dating into a numbers game where men were merely resources to be exploited until they failed the next test. I also discovered how many men had fallen victim to similar schemes. The underground network of women warning each other had documented dozens of cases across multiple cities. This wasn't isolated to Chloe and her crew. It was part of a growing phenomenon where certain social media influencers had normalized these predatory behaviors under the banner of knowing your worth. The most profound lesson came from watching how quickly the facade crumbled when accountability arrived. These women who preached about high-value men couldn't handle even the slightest accountability themselves. When faced with consequences for their actions, they crumbled like cheap plaster. My experience also highlighted the importance of financial literacy and independence in relationships. Having a savings account, something I'd always considered responsible, was framed as a character flaw by Chloe's group. Their worldview was so distorted that responsible money management was seen as stinginess, while reckless spending was celebrated as confidence. I've since spoken with several financial advisors who confirmed this pattern is becoming increasingly common. They've seen clients, both men and women, fall victim to partners who manipulate social expectations around spending and generosity. The advisors recommend maintaining separate finances until a relationship reaches serious commitment, keeping clear records of shared expenses and never feeling obligated to prove your worth through spending. The psychological impact on the victims shouldn't be underestimated either. Many men I've connected with through Dinner Scam Watch described feeling confused, ashamed, and questioning their own worth after these experiences. The emotional manipulation was often more damaging than the financial loss. What started as a single dinner test revealed an entire ecosystem of exploitation built on distorted social norms and social media influence. It's a reminder that in the age of curated online personas, we must remain vigilant against those who weaponize our desire for connection and acceptance. The silver lining is that awareness is growing. More men are sharing their stories, and more women are speaking out against these predatory practices within their own communities. The conversation is shifting from men should always pay to relationships should be built on mutual respect and transparency. As I move forward with my new relationship, one built on genuine connection rather than financial performance, I'm grateful for the harsh lesson Chloe taught me. Sometimes it takes a painful experience to recognize your own worth isn't determined by your wallet, but by the integrity with which you live your life. The 87 of 50 I didn't spend that night turned out to be the best investment I've ever made. Not in terms of financial return, but in the clarity and confidence it gave me about what truly matters in relationships. I've learned that true respect in a relationship isn't measured by how much you're willing to spend, but by how much you're willing to understand and support each other. Financial independence shouldn't be a test, it should be a given. And generosity should come from the heart, not from obligation or manipulation. In the months following my encounter with Chloe, I've connected with dozens of men who've experienced similar situations. We've formed a supportive community where we share our stories and advice. What was once a source of shame has become a platform for empowerment. Through Dinner Scam Watch, we've helped prevent countless others from falling victim to the same schemes. The most rewarding part has been hearing from men who discovered the website before it was too late. Messages like, I almost paid for a $3,000 dinner for 8 people I'd never met. Thank you for saving me. Remind me why I did what I did. It's not about revenge, it's about prevention. I've also had the unexpected experience of hearing from women who were part of these schemes but have since left that lifestyle. Some, like Tasha, have reached out to apologize and share their own stories of how they got caught up in the culture. It's been fascinating, and sometimes heartbreaking, to hear how social media influencers and certain dating gurus have normalized these predatory behaviors. The broader cultural implications of this phenomenon are worth examining. In an era where social media encourages performative displays of wealth and success, it's no wonder some people have internalized the idea that financial generosity equals genuine care. But real relationships are built on mutual respect, not financial transactions. What Chloe and her friends failed to understand is that true value in a relationship isn't measured in dollars spent, but in the quality of time shared, the depth of understanding, and the willingness to support each other through both good times and bad. A man who saves his money responsibly isn't cheap, he's prudent. A woman who pays her own way isn't unfeminine, she's independent. As I reflect on this experience, I realize how close I came to being just another entry on their spreadsheet. But instead of being a victim, I became a catalyst for change. The website has evolved from a simple warning system into a resource for healthy relationship education, featuring articles on financial boundaries, red flags in dating, and how to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial performance. The most surprising development has been the response from the restaurant industry. Several high-end establishments have reached out to collaborate on identifying and preventing these schemes. Some have even implemented subtle protocols to protect unsuspecting diners from being pressured into paying exorbitant bills for groups they barely know. Looking back, I can see how vulnerable I was to this manipulation. Like many men, I'd internalized the idea that paying for dates was a sign of masculinity and commitment. Chloe expertly played on those insecurities, making me believe that my worth as a partner was directly tied to my willingness to spend money. But the real test wasn't the dinner bill. It was how I responded when faced with the truth. By choosing to expose the scheme rather than pay to keep quiet, I reclaimed my power and helped protect others from the same fate. The 87 or 50 in my checking account wasn't a sign of poverty. It was evidence of financial responsibility. And in the end, that responsibility has served me far better than any amount of reckless spending ever could. Chloe may have thought she was teaching me a lesson about being a real man. But the truth is, she taught me what a real relationship shouldn't be. And for that, I suppose I should thank her. After all, it's often through our most painful experiences that we learn our most valuable lessons. Today, I approach dating with a healthier perspective. I still enjoy treating my partner to nice experiences, but I do so because I want to, not because I feel obligated. And when my current partner insists on splitting the check, it's not a rejection of my generosity. It's a sign of her respect for me as an equal partner. In the end, the real test wasn't about who could pay the bill. It was about who could recognize genuine connection when they saw it. And that's a test I'm finally passing with flying colors.